How to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Woohoo!
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Let's go.
Welcome to the Integrative Edge, your go-to podcast for fresh perspectives on holistic health and functional movement. Join us as we explore innovative ways to optimize your health naturally and sustainably.
I'm Kelly Demers, founder of the Integrative Wellness Coalition and the owner of True North Performance.
I'm Lindsay Seefeld, doctor of physical therapy and owner and operator of Uplifted Oncology Rehab.
I'm Dr. Kimberly Klimek, licensed pharmacist and owner of Innate Healing and Performance.
You can find the show on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Welcome to the Integrative Edge, where we bridge the gap between fitness, functional medicine, and holistic wellness. I am Kelly Demers, and I'm joined, as always, by my amazing co-host, Dr. Lindsay Seefeld and Dr. Kim Klimek. Today, we are diving into the gut microbiome revolution, what we know so far, why gut health is at the forefront of medical and wellness research, and practical ways you can support your gut for overall health. Dr. Kim, you work with patients daily on functional medicine, gut health. What's the big deal with the gut microbiome, and why is it getting so much attention?
Great question, Kelly. Honestly, I tell people gut health is whole body health, and we're going to kind of break that down and help you understand why. But let's just start off by talking about what the microbiome is. Sometimes people don't understand what that word is in general. But it's basically a complex and dynamic ecosystem that's in your intestinal lining area and in your gut and digestive tract, where we have trillions of symbiotic microorganisms as a collective together. So it's all your bacteria, your protozoa, your viruses, fungi, kind of working in harmony as a collective to help you do things like break down your nutrients and have mineral absorption. They're somewhat responsible for synthesis of your enzymes, amino acids. They help you fight off pathogens. And then they also work to help you with drug metabolism or supplement metabolism, and then also have a key role in hormone secretion. So that's why it's super important, because I talk to people about actually a portion of their hormone production comes from what's going on in their gut and the status of their gut. And then, so you may have heard things like the gut-brain connection, the gut immune system connection, the gut-hormone connections. And specifically, there's this large gut-brain connection. So your central nervous system is connected to your gut through the vagal nerve. And actually, people don't realize, too, that 90% of your serotonin, or basically that kind of feel-good neurotransmitter that's responsible for regulating our mood, 90% of that is actually produced in our gut. So it's a big reason as to why we want to focus on gut health. And Lindsay can probably talk to you guys a little bit more about the gut immune connection.
Yes. Oh, my goodness. So with our immunity and our lymphatic system is right in our gut. We have hundreds and hundreds of lymphatic nodes that are in our gut. And so when you're thinking of processing foods, so when I'm going to make the connection with anatomy, so we take in the food through our mouth, we swallow it, it goes into our stomach, we digest there a little bit, and then it travels into our intestinal tract. Well, when we're talking about gut, we want to eliminate things, right? So we have to excrete. We have to basically poop to get that out. But if the stool is sitting in our gut and we're not moving it, what happens is some of that stool can seep out. And then what happens is our lymphatic system that is in our gut, it'll pick that up, all that stool, and basically then carry it through our body, and our body sends this inflammation alert, and then we can develop such things as high rate of infections, inflammation in our bodies. So it's very important in regards to the lymphatic system. We've got to make sure our gut health is solid. That is truly, I believe, the foundation of our health. We got to keep everything moving and going so that our immunity is up in par and our general health is good.
So gut health impacts everything from, Lindsay, you touched on it, immunity. Kim, you touched on a little bit about mental health and mood. How do people know if their gut is in trouble? Like what are the warning signs?
Yeah, good question. Let's talk about some of the signs or symptoms that you can kind of correlate or relate to what would look like an imbalanced microbiome. Oftentimes we'll use the terms like dysbiosis or leaky gut in functional medicine, and some people, those are kind of buzz terms, so some people may not know what those are, so let's break them down here. But dysbiosis essentially is what I like to say, the imbalance of good bacteria compared to your bad bacteria. So oftentimes if there's dysbiosis, there's going to be much more bad bacteria overgrowth in the gut than there is the kind of good guys, or we call them the keystone bacteria, or the ones that help you kind of fight off infections or keep it at least level on the playing field, because we all have some form of these bacteria in the gut, but when it becomes a problem essentially when there's an overgrowth of particular species, whether it's like fungi like Candida, it can be certain like microorganisms like Streptococcus, Staphylococcus, which are really supposed to be like mostly on your skin, and they can become an overgrowth like in the digestive tract. A lot of people are dealing with infections like H. pylori, which is more of like an upper stomach infections, and of course like Lyme's disease, where it's the spirochete that really burrows into like a lot of different organs other than just the gut too. But then people will start to experience things like digestive issues, and honestly, they'll get told by the doctor, right, like, oh, you just have IBS, which to me, I definitely think is like a cop-out diagnosis.
It's a blanket term for sure.
Because I've been told that when I was younger, when I was first going through some of my health struggles. But so people start to experience changes in the bowel habits, so constipation, or it could be on the opposite spectrum where it's more chronic loose stools. Then we know we have an imbalance. We know that they're not properly eliminating toxins. So then they can start to experience autoimmune issues like Lindsay mentioned, because we have particles and chemicals and these triggers. So we'll break down a little bit of the triggers. But these things that would naturally, when you have a nice tight junctions in your gut, so I should explain a little bit about leaky gut. But so over time, we get exposure to these chemicals, environmental toxins. It could be prescription drugs, lots of use of like NSAIDs or like ibuprofen, antibiotic use, proton pump inhibitors like omeprazole, pantoprazole, and those types of things, because chronic use of those things is really going to deplete the gut lining. So then it becomes leaky, where it has these little holes in the gut where those are not really supposed to be there. So you have all these particles going straight into your bloodstream, and your body's just like, whoa, like I don't really know what these are, so I'm going to go on attack mode. It hasn't had the time to have this nice active and passive transport of the nutrients, minerals, the particles, etc., like through your gut lumen when it's nice and intact. So it's going on an immediate defense and saying, okay, we're going to kind of just automatically assume it's bad and we attack. So that, essentially at the end of the day, autoimmune diseases are your body attacking your own tissues, your organs, etc., which creates chronic inflammation in the body. So then people may start to have like joint aches and pains. They may develop skin rashes. I always tell people, honestly, like acne in particular places of your face and on your back, and other skin rashes like eczema and psoriasis, that's all a result of what's going on in your gut. And the way I help treat that, because a lot of people will go for like these topical creams and they're going to kind of like try to target the actual like area, but I'm taking a step back and saying, nope, we actually need to work on your gut health to improve those things. A lot of people will experience allergies, so chronic like lung infections. Brain fog is a huge one related to gut health that people are kind of unaware of. And then hormone imbalances for sure.
Yeah, and I think just to top that, I mean, well, you just think about eating. Like sometimes I think people are just aware, like, yeah, my gut is not quite right because when I eat X, Y, and Z, whether it's, dairy or other things, like what happens? You get immediate like gut wrench or like your gut starts hurting. You feel a lot of gas in your belly. I've had clients that belch like the whole time I'm working with them because when I work on their gut, we're moving stuff. So those are just like little things. Like I think most of us like have a good indication like whether our gut is doing okay or not, and it's usually you can feel it. Yeah. And obviously with pooping too, if you're not constantly eliminating, you're holding on to poop for several days, the gut balance is probably off.
Mm-hmm. For someone that was diagnosed with like IBS or some of the other conditions that you listed, how do we know that it's that or it's tied to the gut? I mean, is there a way, if I get diagnosed with IBS, is there a way to reverse that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of looking at it as a whole picture perspective too a little bit, because some of the ways that I help treat constipation is, getting people to open up their lymphatic system and then actually working on their liver health too, because the regulation of bile flow through the digestive tract is actually the thing that helps you move stool through the gut. And if you're not having regular bowel movements, it tells me there's probably more liver stagnancy. And so those are why we try to, it's a different perspective, right? Because the conventional approach is to let's give you stimulants, let's give you laxatives, stool softeners, et cetera, to like kind of force the issue, I would say. Whereas we're kind of cleaning up and like opening up your organs and opening up these pathways so that your body can kind of do it on its own. Because long-term use of those products is it's kind of going to further deplete gut health in general. But yeah, good question.
Sure. So I feel like this is the question everybody's waiting for, right? So if you're listening to this, how do we begin to take action and support gut health? What are practical daily habits that we could put into place that would encourage a better gut biome?
Yeah, so for me, it's really just looking at some of the root causes. When there's really severe issues going on or just like chronic long-term issues, I will take sort of a next step into like looking at the microbiome and actually doing personalized testing. But before that even, right, like we're gonna focus on things like looking at your diet, right? Are you actually getting enough water? Which includes, we had a whole episode about electrolytes and minerals, because if you just drink water like all by itself, you're probably gonna feel sluggish, and it actually may make you more bloaty or constipated if you're not having like this nice movement of those minerals throughout the body. You have enough magnesium, you maybe have your hormones balanced so that there's not as much fluid retention and bloating, especially looking at that for like progesterone levels for women, because it can be a huge factor as to why they have bloating in the latter half of their cycle. So we're making sure. The other things is looking at like how much soluble fiber you're actually getting. And there's definitely a difference between like bulk forming fiber and like soluble. So like where it kind of brings in a little bit more water into the gut. So it is eating things like apples and like chia seeds and versus like bulk forming fiber where that could be like, Metamucil or like psyllium husk. And those are things I will recommend for someone actually if they're having more loose stools to be binding a little bit more binding up of what's going on in the gut. And then, there's a whole portion of that too that can be related to like nervous system regulation for people. I don't specialize in that, but I definitely like send people out for referral for that too, where it's like if they really have like just a chaotic like fight or flight response all the time, and there's a lot of like anxiety and nervous system dysregulation, we also need to work on that. And there's wonderful specialists who do like vagal nerve work and other things like that can help you. And obviously Lindsay's a specialist, kind of get the hands on you.
Well, So in regards to the physical aspect to get the gut moving, I think the first thing is movement. Like you have to get your body moving. So you have to, whatever you enjoy, walking, jogging, running, bicycling, getting in the pool, vibration plates and rebounding, which I know we've talked about in the lymphatic session. I'm telling you, I use my vibration plate like almost every day. And I'm telling you, after I use the vibration plate, I usually have to have a bowel movement because it's really stimulating my gut. And then getting to work with somebody that knows hands-on type techniques. So myself being a lymphatic therapist, as well as I do visceral mobilization. So I know what the internal organs should feel like. So when an individual comes in to work with me, I am actually feeling how their liver feels. Is it moving? Like naturally, our liver should be free floating. It should be moving, but sometimes it can be very stuck. And like Dr. Kim said, that's like a very important catapult to getting your gut moving. So, by having a professional feel like the internal organs, like the stomach, the liver, the intestinal tract, we have to have that dance in our gut. We have to have that natural movement to help the stool move. And, the reasons why maybe some of our internal organs may be stuck, a lot of reasons, like old traumas, where they have and that's the biggest thing I think I see is like all those abdominal surgeries. I've had an appendectomy. I've had my gallbladder moved. I've, had C-sections. I've had hernia repair. I mean, these are all major traumas to your gut, and that creates deep scar tissue, and therefore reducing the natural dance that happens in our gut. So, if you are listening and you have a lot of those old, surgical histories and you have gut issues, maybe it's your scar tissue that is holding everything back. So really seeking out a professional that knows how to assess the internal environment and then try to figure out ways to get it moving.
Yeah, I can attest to that for sure because I've had multiple surgeries, and I'm always the first step was actually just opening up the lymphatic system and helping with like the fascia and the tissue release, and that really helps things get flowing. And it's you do need help in those areas, and it's kind of more of a maintenance thing too, of like continuously doing it right. That's why we feel super great sometimes, like when we use infrared sauna and we go get a lymphatic massage is quite different than like a regular massage or deep tissue massage, those types of things.
Correct. Yeah. And it's different for everybody. So, I mean, that's what's nice working with a professional too, is you can kind of decipher, okay, like what does your body truly need? And, sometimes I work with clients and, we kind of test the waters. Okay. Like you did really great with 3 weeks. Let's try to push it out 4 weeks and just see how you do. And 4 weeks was way too long, Lindsay. And I started having gut issues. So then you just kind of find that right balance. And then, learning techniques that you can do as well at home to help keep things going.
I love that you mentioned exercise as part of, keeping the gut biome in check. One of the things that I have read is while training or regular exercise is great, for those that are overtraining, right? It's a small percent of the population that's overtraining, but there are people out there that are overtraining, thinking that they're on the way to a healthier lifestyle when actually I've read that it leads to an increase in gut permeability. Can you talk to that, either of you?
Absolutely, because that's kind of one of the triggers, can be stress, chronic stress on the body, and people don't really see how this relates to their gut health at all, but it does actually exactly what you said. It can kind of basically create more holes in the gut and lead to more leaky gut symptoms. And, some of the other like root causes to gut dysfunction that we didn't really touch on too is, again, I'm always talking to people about really, really paying attention to like the processed foods, the processed sugars. I feel like most people are aware, or at least they should be, about like inflammatory seed oils and really trying to cut down your exposure to that. Trying to really eat whole foods and, not a lot of stuff, like read the food labels. Don't buy stuff that has a million ingredients on it that's listing a lot of preservatives and fillers and chemicals, because those are actually, they are triggers as to things that are further depleting your gut health. We think of our exposure, trying to avoid exposure to things like glyphosate and pesticides, and sometimes you don't have as much control over it, right? But do the things that you can. We buy organic foods when we can, and I teach people, okay, if you can't buy organic, try to do like the Dirty Dozen list for the organic at least, and then maybe rinse and wash your other vegetables and like apple cider vinegar rinses, and I give them like a little recipe for that. And trying to find other alternatives too, then, because like if you're chronically needing things like antibiotics, you really have to ask yourself, this is a question I say, like, what, why are you chronically sick, a lot of it can come back to gut health. We're definitely gonna have a good discussion about the immune system and how it's related to the gut. But you have to ask yourself why you're chronically getting sick all the time, and then maybe listen a little bit to some of these signs and symptoms and say, yeah, maybe I'm experiencing some of these things. But the chronic stress is quite a phenomena in our country.
For sure. I think so often we spend not enough time talking about the importance of just lifestyle habits, effective stress management, sleep, a quality diet. Taking that one step further, what about prebiotics and probiotics? We see those on every package. And then I'm the marketer's dream, right? So if you tell me that I need it, I'm in. My yogurt has probiotics, or, now I'm going to supplement with prebiotics, and it's all supporting my gut health because that's what the package said. But what is it actually doing? How do I know that I'm making a difference in a positive way? Is it all for naught?
Yes, no, this is such a great topic, and I love helping educate people regarding this topic, because most people are aware of like the probiotics. So those are like the little microorganisms that you can buy that you kind of just put them in your gut, and they can be a little bit of a defense mechanism for what's going on there. So it is things like lactobacillus and bifidobacterium, which are going to be like your general probiotics. Now there's literally hundreds of probiotics, and they range from like 5 billion CFU colony forming units to like 100 billion, which I wouldn't really use unless someone's like really going through like a big autoimmune flare or something like that. But like a general one around 10 to 20 billion is going to be good for like maintenance stuff. But most people are kind of aware of that, right? And then they're also being aware of like fermented foods. There's a lot of like local, people making local, like their own sauerkraut and yogurt and coconut kefir and those types of things, which are really great. But what I have seen a lot more often is people are a little bit more unaware of the prebiotics and now postbiotics, which kind of came onto the scene. But prebiotics, so even if you are feeding your body good probiotics, in order to kind of keep those good strains in the gut, I always tell people you have to feed the probiotics, which is what prebiotic foods is. So it's like basically the foods to keep those probiotics staying in your gut. And it is things more like resistant starches, like green bananas, cooked and cooled potatoes, like rice, legumes, high fiber veggies, so things like onions, garlic, leeks, asparagus, carrots, artichoke, and then different seeds, so like flax seeds, chia seeds, almonds. And then like there are some types of whole grains too, and these are more like prebiotic foods. Now, if somebody's like really deficient in the area, again, that's where some of the supplements can kind of come in. They can kind of help you get there a little bit faster. And most of the products that you're getting, it all comes down to, I would say, being a pharmacist and kind of having that little bit of a scientific brain. It's more coming down to like the milligrams and the amount that you can get all at once. That can really help you pretty quickly if you're pretty deficient in it. And then postbiotics, we call these like short-chain fatty acids, but your body doesn't readily absorb short-chain fatty acids. It's basically so there are things like butyrate, acetate, and propionate. The microbes, when you feed them the prebiotics, they basically create these beneficial metabolites that your gut bacteria ferment from the fiber foods that you're eating. And then those help you, so that's what the postbiotic is. And again, you can kind of replace those if you're deficient with supplements, but those help fuel, basically they are fuel for your intestinal cells. They help with leaky gut healing, and then they can also reduce inflammation, help with your immune system, actually help with insulin resistance and regulation, which is, and so many more things, but insulin regulation is super important for everybody walking the planet. But so that's kind of a little bit of a breakdown on the difference between like the probiotics and the postbiotics.
If someone's taking them, how can they expect to feel? I mean, do you feel different? What's the change that occurs there?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a huge tool that I use in my practice more often than not, especially after I do like gut testing. So you can actually do like a DNA quantitative PCR, like stool analysis tests now. There's various companies. I use a particular one in my practice that I really like, but it'll actually give you a very good picture of what's going on in your microbiome. And I do like to use that to basically help drive the healing process much more quickly versus guessing. Because especially if you've been struggling for so many years, again, the market for supplements is so huge. Like, you don't really necessarily know if you need this or not. Like, you may need colostrum, you may not need colostrum. You may only need bifidobacterium, you don't need more lactobacillus because you may have an overgrowth of that. Because I've seen that oftentimes because a lot of people eat lots of sourdough and they're like, I eat a lot of sourdough. And then I see more like lactobacillus. So you're getting like dysbiosis because you don't get enough bifidobacterium strains. And yes, usually I would say the changes for gut health can actually be improved quite rapidly within 2 to 3 weeks of actually just repopulating some of these strains in the gut that need to be there. Then there are particular kind of fighter probiotics too. So if you're dealing with like an overgrowth of candida, I'm going to recommend more of like a spore-based probiotic to kind of fight off some of that overgrowth. But yes, you should see improvements like bowel movements, obviously, and that's literally going to lead to more energy. And just less brain fog and, then less discomfort too if you're dealing with gas and bloating. So it should, because honestly, there's many days I feel really great with gut health now after learning all these things about it and really working on it for a long time period. Because gut health can take a while. People always ask me, well, what's the time frame? Yes, I mean, we've had years of these, what I call insults to the body and to the gut. So it's not just going to happen overnight, but really realistically within a 3 to 6 month time frame, you can see some positive benefits. And like I said, of even sometimes just even getting a little bit of these targeted probiotics for what you need can really help within the first 2 to 3 weeks. Mm-hmm.
That's great. Anything else that we should know about gut health, about the brain gut connection, things that our listeners should walk away with knowing?
I know, I think kind of Kim summed it up really perfectly is you can't just especially with all the supplements in the world, you can't just take throw a dart at the wall. Okay, I'm just going to try this supplement. It really is so beneficial, I think, in to be testing it, to really know truly what does your body need, because it is overwhelming, like you said, there's so much information out there and what should I take? And okay, I'm just going to grab this supplement off the shelf. You really need to dive in deeper, what Dr. Kim was saying and really test, because there might be certain things that are good in your gut and there's certain things that you need to work on. So I think it's truly important to reach out to that professional, get that gut testing so you truly know where you need to start working on.
I think long-term, you're probably saving money. You're definitely saving time, right? Because if you were to subscribe to every single marketing ad that came and said, this is what you need and why you need it, right? Just making sure that you're getting a more targeted approach, that you're getting the things that you need and nothing you don't, right? That's a great approach.
I mean, I have my own testimonial for all the thousands of dollars that I spent on products when I was in college, just trying to fix my gut health, because I knew none of this. I knew nothing about functional medicine. I was just kind of I saw a label on a shelf or an advertisement that was going to kind of resolve it all for me. And let me tell you, as a practitioner, there's not one single supplement out there that is literally going to fix all your problems about gut health. It really is there's a synchronized approach. When I was training with Institute of Functional Medicine, we learned about this 5R approach for helping heal the gut, and it does take time. And you can't actually, I always tell people and the clients, I'm okay, we're going to have to walk hand in hand through this, because I can't fix everything at once. Sometimes if I do a personalized testing and we get results, we actually have to work on a couple things in a sequential order first, because you can't really jump all the way to step 5 without, I tell people, we can't really heal leaky gut until we can eradicate these overgrowths and these infections first. We kind of work on replacing some of your deficiencies. Maybe if you're low in digestive enzymes or other types of probiotics, we sort of build you up first a little bit. And then I tend to use a little bit more tools. In my practice specifically, I use a lot more antimicrobial. So I don't use antibiotics very specifically. I mean, there's definitely a difference. Some practices will lean towards a little bit more towards antibiotics. I tend to lean a little bit more of the gentle approach and trying to be more restorative with the gut. And maybe either way, one way I guess is maybe not right compared to the other, but I know if you are struggling more with like after effects too of antibiotics, you still, beyond that, you still need to replenish your gut because you've actually depleted it further by using antibiotics, because they not only kill off the bad bacteria, but they kill off good bacteria too. And then the one thing I just wanted to mention too briefly, because I know I didn't touch on it, but there's actually so many links between chronic illness and gut dysbiosis. So it's more than just like IBS, but it is symptoms like anxiety and depression, like your mood disorders, the metabolic issues. So like if you've been like diabetic and you're like really focusing on like nutrition and exercise and things, but you just can't get your blood sugar under control, underlying reasons can be what's going on with your gut health. Other things like atherosclerotic disease, so like elevations in like LDL and blood pressure can actually be linked to what's going on in your gut health. Obesity, so we talked about liver and how important it is and that whole connection too, but it can be like thyroid issues too and the hormonal imbalances, which we didn't dive too much into that, but there's a whole interplay with actually how you metabolize estrogen in the gut. So I send a lot of my clients like this little article that talks about the estrobolome. So it's basically estrogen and the microbiome combined into one word, but there's a whole interplay of how you actually eliminate and process estrogens and bad estrogens and how you eliminate those out of the body. And some people, what I see is there's actually a recirculation of those bad estrogens and toxins because they're not getting them out of the body. And actually one of the bigger ones too can be, it has a link to cancer because when you don't treat like underlying infections or overgrowths, it can lead to inflammation. And then that fuels, cancer cells, and it creates a ground, a kind of a breeding ground for cells to have damage. Because at the end of the day, cancer is, it's damage to your DNA and it's damage to your cells and mutation to your cells.
Yeah, good.
This has been a great conversation, definitely eye-opening. Before we wrap up, can we just go around and give one takeaway for listeners?
In regards to, the gut and movement, I think, if you're listening, and as I had mentioned before, if you have that past surgical history of the gut, that might be an area that you need to seek out a professional and figure out ways to get that gut to release, because that in turn will help your system move more effectively.
Mine is that the gut health is really foundational. It's not just about digestion. It's about overall well-being, from brain health to fitness we touched on, to just being in it for the long term and longevity. So pay attention to how your gut feels and make choices that nourish it.
Yes, and my big takeaway would definitely be to test and not guess. So if you've literally been struggling for such a long time and you are just ready to get on a path to healing, I would love to help you. It's probably one of my favorite areas to help people with is gut health. And it really is just that extra component that you've been missing, because it's an individualized support tool for you with personal data that can help drive and guide you to healing much more quickly versus any generic gut health that you're going to get from, just your neighbor or something.
Perfect. Well, that's it for today's episode on the microbiome revolution and what we know so far. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with someone that needs to hear this. If you aren't already subscribed, please do so on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? If you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. Choose from hundreds of social casino style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.